Bonjour, mon petit chifflet, Amber here, and first things first, I'm done with the winter. I'm over the winter. I'm done with this cold. Wow. Second thing second, speaking of cold, if I'm sounding a little nasally, I woke up with a little touch of something that hopefully will ease its way out as I continue the day, but that's not important. What is important is that it is 2026, as we know. Unfortunately, as I'm filming this, it's February, and ideally I would have uploaded it last month, but we're here now and it's fine. Everything's fine. Nothing's fine, but everything's fine. And I just wanted to sit down and properly talk through my 2026 TBR. In my flip through for my 2026 reading journal, which you should have seen by now, there's like a nice little sneak peek. Obviously I have the whole spread in there dedicated to my 2026 TBR, but I wanted to sit down and properly talk through the 26 books that I'm hoping to read this year. Speaking of said 2026 reading journal, I've got her here, which has the list, and I'm hoping that my laptop will have its breathing together and will not be wheezing free, because I will need her at some points for the synopses of these books. So without further ado, let me find the page that I'm looking for. It's my 2026 setup. Let me bring my laptop over here. Actually, in May of 2025, the end of May, I finally read my first Emily Henry book. I've been saying for years that when I finally read Beach Read, I'm going to read Beach Read on the beach. So at the end of May, we went to Cape May. There's a vlog. There's two if you count the vlog on my second channel. It was honestly the best time. So now that I've got the ball rolling in 2026, obviously it's time to read People We Meet on Vacation. Not just because the movie just came out, but it works out that the movie came out. I'm refusing to watch it until I read the book, even though what I've seen is what it is. But Tom Blythe's in it, so that's nice. But also because that is the next on the list. Oh, that's an interesting cover. Anyway, for those of you who might not know, I really don't know too much about this book. Much like Beach Read, I kind of went in not knowing much. I know it's a friends to lovers. It says 2 friends, 10 trips, their last chance to fall in love. 12 years, Poppy and Alex meet, they hate each other and are pretty confident they'll never speak again. 11 years, they're forced to share a ride home from college, and by the end of it a friendship is formed, and every year one vacation together. 10 years, Alex discovers his fear of flying on the way to Vancouver. Poppy holds his hand the whole way. No one was holding my hand the whole way to Vancouver, but that's fine. My mom was just asleep on the plane. 7 years. They get far too drunk and narrowly avoid getting matching tattoos in New Orleans. 2 years, it all goes wrong. This year, Poppy asks Alex to join her on one last trip, a trip that will determine the rest of their lives. So, one, I'm a travel girly, so I am going to love, I'm assuming there are probably going to be flashbacks throughout the various trips they've gone on. Love it, here for it. Vancouver, I've been there. It's one of my favorite places I've been. New Orleans, I was supposed to go. I was actually supposed to go back to Vancouver in 2020, but you know, literally April 2020 we were supposed to go to Vancouver to go whale watching, which led to me going to Alaska. So it worked out in the end, but I was also planning to go to New Orleans in 2020, and then we know. And I just never got around to planning that trip. So, and then I believe the current day present trip is Palm Springs. Therefore, which brings us to my reading plans. I don't think I can pull it off because with whose money, but much like Beach Read at the beach, I plan to read People We Meet on Vacation on vacation. Therefore, I'm hoping that I can pull off a little miniature escape to Palm Springs. If not, I could just go but I could just read it, take it with me when I go back to Cape May this year, because I am planning to go back to Cape May this year. So the next book came out at the end of 2025 in December. In December. It was one of my like final anticipated releases of 2025, and it's Dawn of the Firebird by Sarah Mugolana. First and foremost, this cover is stunning. It's everything to me, and part of my rush to get the book when I did was because I heard that it had gone into its like second running, and that the second run of books wasn't going to have the pretty sprayed edges, and I'm like, that's not gonna work for me. So I have the gorgeous deluxe edition, and all is well. This book is pitched to fans of the Poppy War. I just finished the Poppy War trilogy in January. I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of conflicting thoughts, but the full vlog of that, full spoilery vlog, it will be up. I was gonna say soon, but I don't know, because I'm in the process of getting my, I've said this in like almost every video in the past couple of months, my hard drive, external hard drive that has the files for the first part of that video, the Poppy War files, are on that hard drive that is in the process of being recovered. I just had a whole little drama with that the past couple of days, but it's fine. Anyway, it's also pitched to fans of She Who Became the Sun, which is on this list, and also The Will of the Many, which is also on this list. This is a fantasy novel. It is a tale of like vengeance and revenge, and it's following the daughter of an overthrown emperor. It says Camilla Zarzad's life has been built on a foundation of violence and vengeance. Every home she's known has been destroyed by war. As the daughter of an emperor's clan, she spent her childhood training to maintain his throne. But when her clansmen are assassinated by another rival empire, plans change. With her heavenly magic of Nur, Camilla is a weapon even enemies would wield, especially those in the magical scholarly city of Zaskar. Hiding her identity, Camilla joins the enemy's army school of Jinn, magic, and martial arts, risking it all to topple her adversaries, avenge her clan, and reclaim her throne. To survive, she studies under cutthroat mystic monks and battles in a series of contests to outmaneuver her fellow soldiers. She must win at all costs, even if it means embracing the darkness lurking inside her. But the more she excels, the more she is faced with history that contradicts her father's teachings. With a war brewing among the kingdoms and a twisted magic overtaking the land, Camilla is torn between two impossibles? What? Vengeance or salvation. I haven't heard anyone talk about this book since it's been released. Maybe my timeline is just not showing me what I need to be shown. I haven't been really on social media that much recently, but I'm excited. It sounds really good. So next is the first of a few classics that I hope to read this year. And I've mentioned before, I'm currently really focused and leaning into reading the staples of Black literature and the Black classics. I recently read Their Eyes Were Watching God. I just finished If Beale Street Could Talk. And next up for me is The Color Purple by Alice Walker. Now, like most people, at least most Black people, obviously I know The Color Purple. I've seen the movie 1,001 times. I will quote it in everyday life. I love Harpo, but I'll kill him dead before I let him beat me. Obviously, I love the music from the musical. I've cried and cried to I'm Here. Cynthia Erivo singing I'm Here altered something in my brain. Fantasia is also incredible. I've never read the book, and I'm sure there's even more in the book. In fact, I heard there are a lot of elements in the book that weren't transferred really into the movie. It says, so I won't butcher the synopsis and try to explain it from memory. A powerful cultural touchstone of modern American literature, The Color Purple depicts the lives of African American women in early 20th century rural Georgia, separated as girls. Sisters Celie and Nettie sustain their loyalty to and hope in each other across time, distance, and silence. Through a series of letters spanning 20 years, first from Celie to God, then the sisters to each other. Despite the unknown, the novel draws readers into its rich and memorable portrayals of Celie, Nettie, Suge, Avery, and Sophia and their experience. The Color Purple broke the silence around domestic and sexual abuse, narrating the lives of women through their pain and struggle, companionship and growth, resilience and bravery. Deeply compassionate and beautifully imagined, Alice Walker's epic carries readers on a spirit-affirming journey towards redemption and love. Beautiful. So when I was talking about Dawn of the Firebird, I mentioned that the next book I'm going to talk about is one of the comps. It's pitched to fans of this book. I haven't been awake long enough. And it's She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, the first of the Radiant Emperor duology. I have had this book sitting around for like a couple years now, and I've put it kind of loosely on my TBRs for the well, it's been years because it's been even before I had the book. So I finally have it, and it's time. It's been sitting over in my hallway for like years, like I said. Coming off of the Poppy War trilogy though, I'm not entirely sure when I'm going to get around to this book, because that was a lot, and I'm kind of like in a decompression mode right now. This is also a fantasy historical quick fiction. I was reading fiction and queer at the same time. This one is also like an Asian inspired military war centered novel. To possess the mandate of heaven, the female monk Zhu will do anything. I refuse to be nothing. In a famine-stricken village on a dusty yellow plain, two children are given two fates. A boy, greatness; a girl, nothingness. Boo, tomato, tomato. In 1345, China lies under harsh Mongol rule. For the starving peasants of the Central Plains, greatness is something found only in stories. When the Zhu family's eighth-born son, Zhu Chongba, is given a fate of greatness, everyone is mystified as to how it will come to pass. The fate of nothingness received by the family's clever and capable second daughter, on the other hand, is only as expected. When a bandit attack orphans the two children, though, it is Zhu Chongba who succumbs to despair and dies. Desperate to escape her own fated death, the girl uses her brother's identity to enter a monastery as a young male novice. There, propelled by her burning desire to survive, Zhu learns she is capable of doing whatever it takes, no matter how callous, to stay hidden from her fate. After her sanctuary is destroyed for supporting the rebellion against Mongol rule, Zhu takes the chance to claim another future, her brother's abandoned greatness. You know, we love to see it. We love to see women rise to power despite men. So the next book is another book I've had for so long. It feels like, well, I've had it honestly since it came out, because I think it's the book of the month edition that I have, and it's The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas. So many people have talked about this book over the years. So many people have gushed about this book over the years. It came out in 2022, so it's been almost 4 years since the book came out, since I've had the book. And this one is sort of in that like Mexican Gothic, Rebecca, even maybe sort of like Jane Eyre-esque vein. So I'm assuming it's like, you know, there's a mad, ill woman trapped in a home, and then drama ensues around that. I believe this one's like a haunted house book of some sort. Mexican Gothic meets Rebecca in this debut supernatural suspense novel set in the aftermath of Mexican War of Independence. About a remote house, a sinister haunting, and the woman pulled into their clutches. In the overthrow of the Mexican government, Beatrice's father is executed and her home destroyed. You hear that wind? When handsome Don Rodolfo Solorzano proposes, Beatrice ignores the rumors surrounding his first wife's sudden demise, choosing instead to seize the security his estate in the countryside provides. She will have her own home again, no matter the cost. But Hacienda San Isidro is not the sanctuary she imagined. When Rodolfo returns to work at the capital, visions and voices invade Beatrice's sleep. The weight of invisible eyes follows her every move. Rodolfo's sister Juana scoffs at Beatrice's fears, but why does she refuse to enter the house at night? Why does the cook burn copal incense at the edge of the kitchen and mark its doorways with strange symbols? What really happened to the first Doña Solorzano? Beatrice only knows two things for certain. Something is wrong with the hacienda, and no one there will help her. Desperate for help, she clings to the young priest, Padre Andres. As an ally, no ordinary priest, Andres will have to rely on his skills as a witch. Hold on. Alright. To fight off the malevolent presence haunting the hacienda and protect the woman for whom he feels a powerful, forbidden attraction. But even he might not be enough to battle the darkness. Far from refuge, San Isidro may be Beatrice's doom. And you know what? I read Mexican Gothic last year. It was one of my favorite reads of 2025. It's up there in like my now ever-growing list of favorite books, and so therefore I'm in. You don't really have to tell me anything else. I attempted to read Rebecca a long time ago. One of the librarians at my local library gave it to me, and I tried to read it, and then I just couldn't get into it. But I was also like significantly younger, and like classics really weren't my thing. I think I was still reeling from being forced to read so many in school. But now that I'm kind of making them more of my thing, I think I'm ready to retry it. I don't know where my copy is, but you know, whatever. I've finished Jane Eyre, so obviously Rebecca is like the next. Maybe I need to add that to my list. I have like a list of like the next classics I want to read. We'll get around to it. So I'm very excited to read this. I have a whole like thing planned revolving this book and like Isabel Cañas in general. I just have to figure out when I want to try to do it. Next, another classic. What did I just say? And it's The Picture of Dorian Gray. I've heard people raving about this book. I always want to say Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I'm sort of like very loosely, when I say familiar with the story or my understanding of the story. I know there's a movie starring Ben Barnes, and shockingly I haven't seen it. Who am I? Like, if you know me, Ben Barnes, that's my man. Okay? That has been my man since 2007, 2008, doesn't matter. So what I know is follows a man who receives a portrait, and he's like obsessed with this portrait of himself. It's like gorgeous, and I think he makes a bargain with like the devil or whatever to maintain like this eternal youth, and the portrait receives all the like signs of aging and ugliness and harm and whatever. None of that, I'm not really sure. Influenced by his friend Lord Henry Wotton, he is drawn into a corrupt double life, indulging his desires in secret while remaining a gentleman in the eyes of polite society. Only his portrait bears the traces of his decadence. The Picture of Dorian Gray was a success de scandale. Early readers were shocked by its hints at unspeakable sins, and by unspeakable sins they mean homosexuality. And the book was later used as evidence against Wilde at the Old Bailey in 1895, you know, for being gay. So apparently there is an uncensored version that was like the one that was intended to be released, I believe. So that's the one I think I want to look for when it's time to read it. I want to read it as Oscar Wilde intended it to be read. Yeah, okay, so Next, let's hop back to fantasy really quickly. The next book I'm hoping to read in 2026 has kind of been floating on my radar for a really long time, and has just been one I said, okay, I'm gonna read this book, and I never really made it a priority. So this year I'm making it a priority. Last year I wanted to as well, but I never got around to it. And it's The Jazad Heir by Sarah Hashem. A lot of these fantasy books, well, not a lot, a couple of the ones, well, I've only mentioned a few, but like a lot that I'm going to mention are categorized also as like romantasy. But like I feel like every romance every fantasy these days that even hints at romance is classified as a romantasy, like as a selling point, and that's really irritating to me. It irks me so much that I like seem to purposely avoid anything that it's romantasy that's not like obviously just a fantasy with a romance in it at some point. But like the ones that are like absolutely romantasy, that are intentionally romantasy, it's put me off from the subgenre. I don't know why, but I don't know, it irks me. And I know that eventually, when the fantasy that I've been writing for 900 years, I'm afraid that like I'll have to be like, no, I don't want it classified as romantasy. I know that's like the current thing that sells right now, but it's just a fantasy novel that also has a romance that is important to the plot, yes, but it's not, don't do that. Anyway, the Jazad Heir, I believe, is an Egyptian inspired fantasy, and that's really exciting for me. It says 10 years ago the kingdom of Jazad burned, its magic outlawed, its royal family murdered down to the last child. At least that's what Sylvia wants people to believe. The lost heir of Jazad, Sylvia never wants to be found. She can't think of how Nizahi's army laid waste. What? She can't think about how is that an I or an L? Nizal's army laid waste to her kingdom and continued to hunt its people. Not if she wants to stay alive. But when Aaron and the Nizal heir tracks a group of Jazadi rebels to her village, staying one step ahead of death gets trickier. In a moment of anger, Sylvia's magic is exposed, capturing Aaron's attention. Now, to save her life, Sylvia will have to make a deal with her greatest enemy. If she helps him lure the rebels, she'll escape persecution. A deadly game begins. Sylvia can't let Aaron discover her identity, even as hatred shifts into something more. We love and enemies to lovers. Soon, Sylvia will have to choose between the life she wants and the one she left behind. The scorched kingdom is rising, and it needs a queen. Ooh. In this Egyptian-inspired debut fantasy, a fugitive queen strikes a deadly bargain with her greatest enemy and finds herself embroiled in a complex game that could resurrect her scorched kingdom. I could have just read that. Or leave it ashes forever. I'm going to tell you something. I didn't know what this book was really about until right now. I don't think I've properly read its synopsis since maybe around the time it first came out, and then I promptly forgot. So fun. Okay, last year when I was doing my books with Hosier Vibes vlog, I read, what is that book called? What's that book called? Oh my god. The Saint of Heartbreak by Morgan Dante. And that is like this dark gothic religious inspired romance following Judas Iscariot and the devil, and I loved it. Wow. But another possibility for the category that I read that for within my vlog, that section was inspired by Take Me to Church by Hosier. And another option that I was choosing between was Angels Before Man by Raphael Nicholas. So I left my Saint of Heartbreak reading experience like with the need to continue consuming books like that, right? Therefore, my need to read Angels Before Man only grew, truthfully. And honestly, it makes sense considering there was a long time in my life when I was like really obsessed with like fallen angels. I mean, who, of course, that was a time in literature, in yeah, literature and books, but like even before that, I say a time, it was a good chunk of my life, and that's partially my grandmother's fault, but we can talk about that another day. It makes sense. It makes sense for me. You know, I grew up watching the prophecy movies all the time. All the time. Angels Before Man is a queer retelling of Satan's Fall. It says that's part cozy coming of age and part fast-paced tragedy with a little love story in between. You know, I feel like that's all we need to know. In Eternal Paradise, the most beautiful angel, Lucifer, struggles with shame, identity, and timidity with little more than the desire to worship his creator. It isn't until the strongest angel, Michael, comes into his life that Lucifer learns to love himself. Along the way, their friendship begins to bloom into something else, maybe the first romance in the history of everything. But this God is a jealous one, and maybe paradise is not paradise. Fun. I'm sorry, I scroll down and the first review I see, someone says, I want them to cut me open and replace my organs with the pages of this book. Okay. Next is the other book that was used to comp Dawn of the Firebird, and it's The Will of the Many, that I only very recently, and by very recently I mean like the end of 2025, decided that I was going to read. I don't know, I had heard a lot of people talking about it, and I was like, okay, cool, like a that might be something I'm interested in the future. And somehow it took going to the bookstore and like holding it in my hand, because I was like, oh, this is the book everyone's talking about, and I just picked it up, and it's so large, and it was something about the paperback that I was like, ooh, I'm gonna read this book. I don't know, but I did get it. I didn't get the paperback. I eventually got a hardback copy, and I really did want the paperback, but the hardback was on sale, and I'm like, you know what, it's hard to find a hardback of this size at a reasonable price these days. So I know this is sort of like a fantasy, and it's a dark academia. I'm into it. I don't actually really know much aside from the fact that it's a fantasy, dark academia. It takes place in an academy. That's all I know, and I'm gonna try to speed through these synopses more. I'm gonna try not to linger as much because I'm not even halfway through this list yet, and I don't want this video to be that long. So next we're going into a series continuations. One of my goals for 2026 is to really focus on series, prioritize sequels and continuations, and start like really knocking these out. So the first is a sequel to one of my favorite books of whichever year it was that I read it. I think it was 2024. I read most of it in 2023 and finished it in 2024. And it's Painted Devils by Margaret Owen, which is the sequel to Little Thieves, which I was obsessed with. Little Thieves is a retelling of The Goose Girl by the Grimm brothers, who I love. I love the Grimm stories. I love a Grimm retelling. I love Margaret Owen. She does not miss. I'd had Little Thieves for a long time before reading it, but I wanted to finish the Merciful Crow duology. I came off the Merciful Crow duology a little nervous because I was obsessed with those books. I'm like, what if the next series isn't good? What I say, Margaret Owen doesn't miss. That one follows Vanya, who is like the adopted daughter of Fate and I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. Long story short, she wants to get out of her life, away from her parents, her godparents, whatever. She manages to, like, because they want her to, I think, like, serve them and like run and work for them, but she wants her freedom. She wants to live her life, and she wants to escape, and she wants the riches, and she wants this, that, and the other. She ends up in the service of some lady, she's not a princess, but she's actually about to marry like this high-ranking nobleman. Giselle is her name, I believe. But by night, Vanya is like a little petty thief. And her actions catch up to her. She ends up cursed every full moon. Like, she's turning into a human jewel, essentially. And to stop the curse, she has to basically right her wrongs, yada yada yada. There is a junior detective involved who's on the case to try to find who this thief is. Blah blah blah. Nobleman's awful. Book is incredible. So Painted Devils is the follow-up to that. Yeah, I'm excited to finally get to it. I'm gonna have to reread Little Thieves first. Next is the finale of one of my favorite series that I've been raving about for, it feels almost like the entirety of the time that I've been talking majorly about books on this channel. And it's Witchlight by Susan Dennard, which is the final Witchlands book. I've been talking about the Witchlands books for so long. Truth Witch, Wind Witch, Blood Witch, specifically Blood Witch, Sight Witch, and what was the one before that? Witch Shadow. Now Witch Shadow I wasn't obsessed with like I wanted to be, nor like I was previously with the rest of the series. I think my mistake was that I didn't reread the series before going into that book, and it had been so long since Blood Witch that I had forgotten a lot of like key elements, and I was kind of like detached from the story. So I know that I'm gonna have to dedicate time when I'm ready to finish this series to rereading the whole series before I go into Witchlight, because I need the finale to be the finale. I need the finale to finale, you know? So it's really hard to describe the Witchlands, but there's like elemental magic involved. Each book follows a different character's arc. The heart of the story are Sophia and Isolde. They are Thread sisters. What does that mean? Read the books. It's like there are pirate princes. There's like shadow magic. There's like death magic. There's like, I don't know. It's fantastic. I'm gonna be really sad when I finally finish this series. Most likely I'm gonna, knowing myself, I'm gonna put it off for a really long time, like I did the Sweet Black Waves. Is that what that book was called? The Tristan and Isolde retelling. I put that finale off for a really long time. So. Okay, next is another conclusion, and it's Faithbreaker by Hannah Kaner, which is the final of the Godkiller books, which is Godkiller, Sunbringer, and then Faithbreaker. Godkiller is so good. It's a fantasy book, and it's set in a world where the gods have supposedly been eliminated. It follows, what is this book about? What's the main character's name? Ksenia, who is a god killer, as the title implies, and the gods have kind of been like outlawed, and they're kind of been eliminated, and she goes around rounding up like the lingering gods. She is kind of, I don't know if she's hired, but there's a little noble girl whose entire family essentially has died, comes under her care, and she has like this little pet god, Sketty, who she is like attached to. They're like, their souls are tied or bound or whatever, and like I think they're supposed to be trying to go to like the ancient like resting place where the wild gods are, to like try to figure out how to break this bonding. There's a former knight of this like worsening, kind of like maddening king who has made some interesting deals with some interesting creatures, and he's now a baker also, and he joins their quest. I'm not describing this well, but Faithbreaker's the last one. Okay. That was awful. Next, I'm hoping to read The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin, which is the sequel to the 5th season, which I read last year. 5th season is like a sci-fi fantasy. It's set in this like kind of, it's like sort of post-apocalyptic, because every sort of 1,000 years there's an apocalypse that collapses society. And I actually don't know how to describe this book without spoiling anything, but also because it is a very confusing book. I spent a lot of it really not understanding what I was reading. In fact, I did start a spoilery vlog for this series, and if you choose to watch it at some point, in the filming of that, there's a moment where I have to sit down and just talk through everything as I understand it, just to make sure that I'm following. So let's see what it says. Okay, this is the way the world ends. Again, 3 terrible things happen in a single day. As soon, a woman living an ordinary life in a small town comes home to find that her husband has brutally murdered their son and kidnapped their daughter. Meanwhile, Sansa, the world-spanning empire whose innovations have been civilization's bedrock for 1,000 years, collapses as most of its citizens are murdered to serve a madman's vengeance. And worst of all, across the heart of the vast continent known as the Stillness, a great red rift has been torn into the heart of the earth, spewing ash enough to darken the sky for years or centuries. Now, Essun must pursue the wreckage of her family through a deadly dying land, without sunlight, clean water, or arable land, and with limited stockpiles of supplies. There will be war all across the Stillness, a battle royale of nations, not for power or territory, but simply for the basic resources necessary to get through the long dark night. Essun does not care if the world falls apart around her. She'll break it herself if she must to save her daughter. And that really barely even scratches the surface of this book and what is going on in this book. Yeah, like I said, the obelisk is book 2. That's all I can say. The next book I have had in storage for a really long time. I couldn't get into that storage unit for a while, but now that it's made accessible to me again, I really am excited to be able to finally go in. In fact, when I was doing my first read or unhaul it, I was begging not to choose that book because like I can't get to it right now, and then I chose it and then had to choose a different book. But it's The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. I think I have the, no, it's like a Fairy Loot or something edition. Mine is the purple one. I have the purple cover. And I'm gonna be real, I don't truly remember much of what this book's about. It says Luli al-Nazari is the midnight merchant, a criminal who, with the help of her djinn bodyguard, hunts and sells illegal magic. When she saves the life of a cowardly prince, she draws the attention of his powerful father, the Sultan, who blackmails her into finding an ancient lamp that has the power to revive the barren land, at the cost of sacrificing all djinn. With no choice but to obey or be executed, Luli journeys with the Sultan's oldest son to find the artifact. Aided by her bodyguard, who has secrets of his own, they must survive ghoul attacks, outwit a vengeful djinn queen, and confront a malicious killer from Luli's past. And in a world where story is reality and illusion is truth, Luli will discover that everything, her enemy, her magic, even her own past, is not what it seems. And she must decide what she will become in this new reality. This is what I was about to say. Inspired by stories from 1001 Nights, The Stardust Thief weaves the gripping tale of a legendary smuggler, a cowardly prince, and a dangerous quest across the desert to find a legendary magical lamp. I was about to say this sounds like 1001 Nights. This is the start of a series, the Sand Sea trilogy. So did the third one not come out? Oh, the third one is supposed to come out in 2027. All right, that's news to me. I have time to catch up. So a nonfiction that I am prioritizing in 2026 is The Eyes of Gaza, a diary of resilience by Plestia Alakad, who was one of the main journalists on the ground at the beginning of the current genocide in Gaza. It says in early October 2023, Palestinian Plestia Alakad was a recent graduate with dreams of becoming a successful journalist. By the end of November, her social media posts depicting daily life in Gaza amid Israel's deadly invasion and bombardment would profoundly move millions of people. She would be internationally known as the Eyes of Gaza. Written as a series of diary extracts, The Eyes of Gaza relates the horrors of her experiences while showcasing the indomitable spirit of the men, women, and children who share her communities. From the epicenter of turmoil, while bombs rain down around her and devastation grips her people, she is witness to their emotions, their gentle acts of quiet, necessary heroism in the moments of unexpected tenderness and vulnerability amid the chaos. Through the raw honesty and vulnerability of a normal 21-year-old woman, that's crazy, trying to make her way through a human tragedy, The Eyes of Gaza is a potent reminder of the horrors of violence and a powerful testament to the human spirit. It recounts a harrowing experience, but is not a heartbreaking lamentation. Rather, it is a deeply intimate love letter to a girl's demolished before her eyes. Yes, but forever present in her heart. To a girl's, I'm assuming, city, land, demolished before her eyes. One of those. This another one that's not on my list, but I also really want to read, is Perfect Victims by Muhammad Al-Kurd. I read his poetry book, Rifka, a couple years ago, and I feel like this is like a great book. Perfect Victims in the Politics of Appeal. The next book is another sequel. The next two are we're back to like series continuations. I think these are the last two of like the series continuations that I'm focusing on, and the first one is Layer of Dreams by Libba Bray, which is the sequel to The Diviners. Did I read The Diviners last year or was it the year before last? Either way, that one is a fantasy set in New York during the 20s. It involves like, it follows this girl who has arrived in New York, kind of an outcast from her home in England. She is so excited to come live in New York and follow her flapper dreams, and she moves in with her uncle who runs this like occult museum. And then it follows, she also has like this power that she's keeping hidden, and it follows her and these other like teenagers sort of like her. There's a sort of like paranormal supernatural serial killer out on the loose. It's kind of like a paranormal occult based whodunit, and it's actually it's very, very good. I really enjoyed my time reading the book, and I'm really excited to continue the series. The next is a series I've had an interesting journey with. I was obsessed with the first book. The second book was fine, but just didn't really do it for me the way the first book did and the way I wanted it to. So I'm kind of a little bit nervous going into the third and final book. And this book is Mirrored Heavens by Rebecca Rowanhorse. It's the third and final of the, I don't remember the name of the actual series, of the can you please? Between Earth and Sky series, the first of which is Black Sun, which I was obsessed and still obsessed with. It's still, I still consider it one of my favorite books. That book is it's set in like a fantastical pre-Columbian Americas. It's like, it says, woven into a tale of celestial prophecies, political intrigue, and forbidden magic. Follows this man, this blind man who has the powers of a god, who is on a quest that might bring on the complete destruction of the world. It follows this woman who is a sailor who encounters this man. It just follows all of the politics around the world. I'm not going to do it any justice. It is such a good read. It's such an original, like, intriguing story, and it's woven so perfectly and so beautifully, and Serapio is everything to me. The Crow God is everything to me. I don't know what to tell you. Book 2 was book 2. So I'm hoping Mirrored Heavens will bring it back around, bring it back to like the story that I fell in love with, and the storytelling that I fell in love with, and back to the characters that I care about. So The next is a reread, and it's one of my favorite books of all time ever, period. I'm planning to reread The Two Princesses of Bromar by Gail Carson Levine. And when I tell you about my lore and my history with this book, this was my Hunger Games before the Hunger Games. And when I say that, I mean, if you don't know, I've read the Hunger Games trilogy, the original trilogy, 16 times. I know in my last November vlog I kept saying 17, but it was 16. This year will be 17 for real this time. I'm obsessed with the Hunger Games, we know this, right? But before the Hunger Games, my most read book was The Two Princesses of Bromar. That was my book from like middle school through high school, where every time I didn't know what to read, I just reread that book. It's such a comfort book for me. It's such an influential book for me, and like the stories I was writing at the time as a young child, and then I guess it would like influence the stories that I would continue to write even like as an adult. My love of like, it just goes with my love of like fairy tales and just like that sort of fantasy. And it follows two sisters, Meryl and Annie, and they live in this world and a plague strikes their land, and one of the sisters falls ill. The other one is tasked to go on this quest to save her sister as well as her country, and there's magic and there's wizards and there's dragons, and it's just such a good book. And I'm hoping, I know I'm going to, I know I am. One, I've read it so many times, I know that book is in my DNA, but I'm hoping that it's such as good a time as it was all of the other times that I've read it when I was younger, and that like being an adult hasn't like ruined the magic and like whimsy of the book. And there's gonna be like a whole event extravaganza following like this book, obviously, in my reading experience, but I'm excited. So in 2025, if you were here in 2025, you witnessed me fall in love with Octavia Butler's writing. I'm late to the party, but I'm here. Hello. A Parable of the Sower changed my life. It changed me as a person. I read both Earthsea books. I read Fledgling. I didn't love Fledgling, unfortunately. I didn't really like Fledgling at all, but it's Octavia Butler's, neither here nor there. 2026, I'm planning to continue the party, and I'm planning to read as many of her books as possible. My main focus, the main one I want to read, is Kindred. I would love to read it this month. It's February. I would love to read it this month, but I don't think I will be able to. One, I don't own the book yet. I could get it from the library, but I know I'm going to want to annotate it. That's my problem. One of my goals, I want to utilize my library more, but at least with like my TBR books, I know when I read those, I'm going to want to annotate them. It says, the visionary author's masterpiece pulls us along with her black female hero through time to face the horrors of slavery and explore the impacts of racism, sexism, and white supremacy then and now. Dana, a modern black woman, is celebrating her 26th birthday with her new husband when she is snatched abruptly from her home in California and transported to the antebellum South. Rufus, the white son of a plantation owner, is drowning, and Dana has been summoned to save him. Dana is drawn back repeatedly through time to the slave quarters, and each time the stay grows longer, more arduous and more dangerous, until it's uncertain whether or not Dana's life will end long before it has changed to begin. Now, I feel like I know there's a movie or a show or something, and no, this isn't the one with Janelle Monáe, I don't think. That's not Kindred, but it's a similar premise. But yeah, it sounds like it's going to be incredible. It sounds like it's going to be possibly a lot, but it's okay. It's fine. I'm going to have a great time. Speaking of books that I know that are going to be a lot, but are in the long run going to be a good time, I have to read The Good House by Tananarive Due. I read The Reformatory in October, and it shattered my spirit. It really did. So I don't know when I'm going to read The Good House. Now, I have it in my possibility pile for February, but I don't think I'm ready for it. One, it's still too soon from The Reformatory, and I don't know if I mentioned this, but I finished the Poppy War trilogy, and that was a lot, and I'm kind of right now trying to decompress and like resettle myself, so it might not be for a while. But The Good House is sort of like a haunted house story, but obviously not a haunted house story because Tanana Reeve story books are always so layered and so much more than they are described on the surface. And the horrors of these horror stories are always the realities that Black people have been dealing with since we were dragged onto this land. Angela hoped her grandmother's famous healing magic could save her failing marriage while she and her family lived in the old house the summer of 2001. Instead, an unexpected tragedy ripped Angela's family apart. 2 years later, Angela is moving past her grief and is finally ready to revisit the rural house she loved so much as a child. But back in Sacagawea, she discovers she hasn't been the only one to suffer a shocking loss. Since she left, there have been more senseless tragedies, and Angela wonders whether they are related somehow. Could the events be linked to a terrifying entity her grandmother battled in 1929? Did her teenage son, Corey, reawaken something that should have been left sleeping? With the help of Miles Fisher, her high school boyfriend, the clues from beyond the grave, Angela races to solve a deadly puzzle that has followed her family for generations. She must summon her own hidden gifts to face the timeless adversary stalking her in her grandmother's house and in the Washington woods. Shifting gears a little bit, not really out of horror, but out of the type. This year, I plan to read Interview with Vampire by Anne Rice. I'd gone so long really without caring about reading the book itself, but I have fallen so deep into the the Interview with Vampire whole, like, of the show. The show has got its fangs deep into me. I'm so obsessed with Louis Dupont de Lac and Lestat de Liancourt and my girl Claudia. So I need to read the source material. I spent a lot of my life afraid of the movie and having now feels like fully justified beef with both Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise, but specifically Brad Pitt. It makes sense now, knowing how much he hated being there. I feel really justified, aside from the fact that from him being a horrible person. I've hated him simply because that role scared me when I was little. I rewatched the movie recently and I'm just like, you know, it's actually good. But the show is so significantly better. But yeah, it's time to read the source material. I don't know if I'm going to read all of the books from the series. Probably The Queen of the Damned, just to see how bad the movie is. I rewatched the movie for the first time since I was like 11 or 12, and my god, but Aaliyah looks fantastic. Another sequel, I thought I was finished, but I was wrong. I need to read Amari and the Great Game. I read Amari and the Night Brothers so long ago and I loved it so much, but I just haven't been able to move on with the series yet, and I need to. I want to read more middle grade this year, I think, because I want to read Claribel Ortega's. I want to start with Ghost Squad. I have that book, and then go on to the other series. Amari and the Night Brothers follows Amari, whose brother has gone missing, and then from that she's kind of brought into this like secret magical world. She ends up at this like sort of like magic summer camp where she goes, that she did not know her, or is it like a school, whatever, she didn't know her brother was involved in this world at all. If you like Legendborn, if you're a Legendborn girly, Amari is Bree's little cousin. The next book is a book I just found in the bookstore one day, and I was like, ooh, this looks fun. I read the synopsis and I was like, ooh, I need to own this. And it's Sour Cherry by Natalia Theodoridou. Truthfully, I never can remember what this book's about when I talk about it, but let's see if this is similar to what the book says, because I could get up to get the book, but I don't feel like doing that. A stunning reimagining of Bluebeard. I did not know that. Okay. One of the most mythologized serial killers twisted into a modern tale of toxic masculinity, a feminist sermon, and a folk tale for the 21st century. The tale begins with Agnes. After losing her baby, Agnes is called to the great manor house to nurse the local lord's baby boy, but something is wrong with the child. His nails grow too fast, his skin smells of soil, and his eyes remind her of the dark forest. As he grows into a boy, then into a man, a plague seems to follow him everywhere. Trees wither at the roots, fruit rots on its branches, and the town turns against him. The man takes a wife, who bears him a son. But tragedy strikes in cycles, and his family is forced to consider their own malignancy, until wife after wife, death after death, plague after plague, every woman he touches becomes a ghost. The ghosts become a chorus, and they call urgently to our narrator as she tries to explain in our very real world exactly what has happened to her. The ghosts can all agree on one thing: the inescapable truth about this man, this powerful lord who has loved them and led them each to ruin. If you leave, you die. But if you die, you stay. Natalia Theodoridou's haunting and unforgettable debut novel, Sour Cherry, confronts age-old systems of gender and power, long-held excuses made for bad men, and the complicated reasons we stay captive to the monsters we love. Right? It also kind of feels like the whole baby, Laura's baby and whatever, it has like a Rosemary's Baby type vibe. I love Rosemary's Baby. Okay, I'm trying to speed run these last few ones. So, a book I've wanted to read and wanted to own since last year, and just every time I go to the bookstore I pick it up to buy it, and then I'm like, oh, it's $30. I can't do it. It's Slash Beauties by A. Rushby. First of all, I love this cover. This is a gothic feminist body horror. Apparently it's told in 2 timelines revolving around 3 anatomical Venuses, which are ultra-realistic wax figures of women that come to life at night to murder men who have wronged them. That's all I need to know. That's all I need to know about the book, especially as someone who grew up loving the movie Mannequin, despite sometimes being uncomfortable around mannequins. That sounds so good. So the next is another reread, and it's really just a band-aid type thing. I gotta reread this to finish up the series that I started on my channel, and I'm going to read Breaking Dawn. I'm going to read Breaking Dawn so I can finally be done with this Twilight reread and this Twilight reread saga on the channel. That's all that needs to be said. So the final book is a book I've had on my recommended book list for a couple years now, and now I'm really trying to like prioritize the books that were on that list so that I can like be done with those. And just also, this sounds really good, and I'm kind of really, I don't hear people talking about it aside from the person who recommended it to me, but it sounds like a good time. And it's The Surviving Sky by Kritika H. Rao. It's like a sci-fi fantasy. Enter a lush world of cataclysmic storms, planet-wide jungles, floating cities, and devastating magic in the first book of an explosive new science fantasy trilogy perfect for fans of N.K. Jemisin, Tasha Suri, and Martha Wells. I've only not read one of those authors, and it's Martha Wells. I believe this is also like an eco fantasy that has to do with like the climate or whatever. High above a jungle planet float the last refuges of humanity, plant-made civilizations held together by tradition, technology, and arcane science. Here, architects are revered deeply, with humanity's survival reliant on a privileged few. If not for their abilities, the cities would plunge into the devastating earth rage storms below. Charismatic and powerful, Iravan is one such architect. His abilities are his identity, but to Ahelia, his archaeologist wife, they are a method to suppress non-architects. Their marriage is thorny and fraught, yet when a jungle expedition goes terribly wrong, jeopardizing their careers, Ahelia and Iravan must work together to save their reputations. But as their city begins to plummet, their discoveries threaten not only their marriage, but their entire civilization. And this is the first of a trilogy, like I said, the Rages trilogy, which was completed in 2025, so that's fun that it's a completed series. And yeah, I'm just intrigued by this concept. Like I said, I haven't heard many people talk about it at all. I want to start a bunch of new series despite needing to finish even more. So before my battery dies, those are the 26 books I'm hoping to read in 2026. Let's pray that I get through at least half of them. Last year I got through a majority of my TBR list. I think I can do it. I think I can do it. I own some. I was gonna say a bit. I own like 4. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up. If you like me, feel free to subscribe. All my places are down below so you can follow me and I'll follow you back, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.